The thoughts that you try the hardest to hide are usually the ones that end up running your entire identity. And the scariest part about that is that you don't even know that it's happening, at least not consciously, okay? But there is this moment, and maybe you've had it too, where you suddenly realize and it clicked like, wait, this version of me that I am defending so intensely wasn't even built by me. Yep. That is the problem. That is the part that no one wants to touch. So I've been sitting with this for a while, and it's uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable even, because once you see it, you just can't unsee this reality, okay? There's like this forbidden thought, okay? Most people never say it out loud. Some of them don't even admit it to themselves. And it goes like this, okay? If I stop being who I've always been, I don't know who I'll be instead. And that sounds simple, okay? But it hits deeper than people actually think. And that's because having an identity feels safe. At least you're someone, right? Even when that very identity is a thing that is suffocating you. Sometimes I catch myself defending parts of my personality that aren't actually mine. Okay. They were just basically leftovers from survival mode, leftovers from the childhood, leftovers from all the fear that I've accumulated throughout my life, and just leftover from whatever version of me thought that endurance was the same as strength. And do you ever catch yourself doing that? Telling yourself that this is just who I am. When deep down, you know that you weren't born this way. You just became this way somehow. You weren't born like this. My dad used to say this thing, okay? And he didn't mean it in like a philosophical way, but somehow it turned out to be one of the realest things that anyone has ever said to me. And he said, people don't protect their truth. They protect their story about the truth. And honestly, I didn't really get it back then. I was way younger, but I think I kind of get it now. Okay. Because how I see it, we cling to the narrative because the narrative feels safer than the truth. The truth is always messy. It's messy and it has the power to rearrange you, and it also demands a lot of things from you that you just don't want to give up. And my mom, she had this way of noticing when I was pretending. Honestly, I can't, yeah. And not pretending for others, just pretending for myself. She would look at me and go, you're not angry, you're scared. Like, you don't know what to do with being scared, so you turn being scared into angry. And whenever she whenever she does that, my brain starts to, like re-engineer my emotions. And I always hate how right she was, is, still happens. Yeah. I still find myself doing that sometimes, okay? And turning things turning things into something more socially acceptable instead of, letting them be what they actually are. And what's really funny about this is that in the Bible, it mentions it in a few lines, but let me say the one in Proverbs. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. It's not saying as he pretends or as he performs or as he presents. No, as he thinks. So it's the stuff that you never say and the stuff that you hope that no one hears. And even the stuff that you're hiding from yourself. That's what really shapes who you are. Not the curated version, not the public version, not even the socially acceptable version that you've created. It's the private thoughts, the forbidden thoughts. Those are the architect of who you really are. I've realized something lately, and I don't know if this is going to sound dramatic or just painfully honest, but here it is, okay? The part of me that I'm most proud of were built by pain. Okay. And the parts of me that I am most ashamed of were also built by pain. It's the same architect, just different rooms. And what nobody tells you is you can walk out of those rooms anytime you want. But just because you can doesn't mean you will, because you won't. Not until someone forces you to, whether it's a breakup, a loss, a betrayal, a moment where your own reflection just stops making sense. Something cracks, okay? And suddenly you are staring at yourself like a stranger. Look yourself in the mirror and say, who the hell is this person? Identity is something that breaks loudly, rebuilds quietly, piece by piece, after the experience, after the trauma, the realization, the awakening, choice by choice, and thought by thought. And usually it starts with the forbidden one, the one that you have been avoiding, the one that you didn't want to even speak. And for me, the forbidden thought was, I don't actually like the person that I've been pretending to be. That one hurt a lot, okay? Because it meant that I had to admit that I built a mask so realistic that I forgot it wasn't my face. And here's the uncomfortable truth that most people won't admit. You don't fear changing your identity. You just fear losing the excuses that identity gave you. Because when you take away the old self, you also take away the fallback narratives. You take away the I act this way because this and this happened. This is just who I am. Blah 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 blah. I can't help it. This is my personality. This is how I was born. Without those narrative excuses, you're just left with yourself. Raw, uncovered, unnamed, and just, you. And that's more terrifying than it sounds. But that is also where real freedom hides. Sometimes I would just sit alone and think to myself, okay, how many decisions in my life were made by the person that I used to be and not the person that I am now? And how long am I going to let that version of me keep leading the way? How long am I going to let the old fears shape new seasons? How long am I going to let the version of me that didn't know any better just decide the future of the version of me that finally does? You can feel it, can't you? That quiet sense that something inside of you is shifting, or at least wants to. And that's okay because identity isn't something that's supposed to stay the same. It's something that evolves and changes throughout the course of your life. A mask is the only thing that doesn't change. And just maybe, this is the part where you stop carrying the old story and finally start telling the truth. And I'm not saying to your family or your friends or your lover, just to yourself, just you. That is enough. That has always been enough.